Absalom appears as a young, magnetic prince who walks among the people and wins their ear. He fashions a court of justice beneath the city gate, listening where the king no longer seems to rule. David looks worn and older than his years. Once the triumphant king, he now feels the pull of betrayal. He gathers the loyal few, clutching his carved staff, and prepares to abandon Jerusalem to save lives. As the first beat closes, Absalom does not wait. He sets his plan in motion beneath olive trees, gathering supporters from Israel and sending messengers to the tribes. Ambition becomes a campaign, and grievances become banners. When the messengers return, David learns that Absalom is proclaimed king in Hebron. The news lands like a physical blow. David understands that his throne is contested, and that the nation may be pulled apart unless he acts. In that midnight hour, David chooses to flee. He puts his people and the city before his crown. With a handful of loyal followers, he slips through the gate and rides into uncertainty to avoid needless bloodshed. As David prepares to leave, Ittai the Gittite kneels and pledges to follow him even into exile. David hesitates because this man is a foreigner, but Ittai's loyalty embodies the deep personal bonds that still hold the king together. As he rides, David hears of the sorrow at home. Wives and mothers weep in the palace. The flight is not only political, it wounds the family. The rupture exposes how rebellion rends kin as well as country. When Absalom enters Jerusalem, he is greeted like a savior. He parades his supporters through the streets and claims the king's seat. The city accepts him at first, believing a new ruler will deliver justice and opportunity. As the army musters, David climbs the Mount of Olives and prays. He laments the divided household and seeks guidance. The mountain moment frames his kingship as something dependent not only on force, but on a moral order he fears has broken. When morning comes, Joab marshals the loyal troops. He moves with a commander's bluntness because he knows the stakes. A civil fight will decide whether the kingdom endures, and whether justice or lawlessness sets the course. In the forest of Ephraim, the two forces collide with brutal chaos. Trees conceal men and suddenly become traps. Absalom's men fight fiercely. The battle feels less like poetry and more like the grinding reality of civil war. As the battle rages, Absalom's long hair becomes his undoing. Riding under low branches, his hair catches, and he is flung from the mule. The personal detail of a prince's hair turns the tide of fate in the middle of combat. In that moment, soldiers find Absalom trapped, dangling between life and death. Joab's men press the attack, and despite Absalom's royal blood, the chaos claims him. A pulse of violence ends the son's revolt with a private, messy death. But before the moment softens, Joab acts with grim decisiveness. He orders Absalom slain and will not be stayed. The commander acts from military necessity or bitter calculation. His choice severs mercy from victory. When the messenger reaches David with a report that Absalom is dead, David's reaction is jolting. He weeps and says, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom." The king's grief unmasks the complicated love of a father amid political ruin. As the aftermath settles, Absalom is buried under a heap of stones. The victory feels empty. The kingdom is intact for now, but the heart's broken, and the bloodshed mark a deep cost. Civil triumph tastes like sorrow. In the days after victory, David forbids fanfare. He refuses to be comforted, and he refuses to gloat. His restraint is a kingly sadness, leadership that mourns its own losses and recognizes that winning does not erase the wounds of rebellion. Days pass, and the nation moves toward repair. Markets reopen and fields are sown, but the memory of sons lost and homes torn remains. The people remember both the urgency that spawned a revolt and the violence it produced. When night falls, David's public mask slips. He sits in private grief and remembers his son not only as a rebel, but as a boy he loved. The passage forces us to see the human cost of political choices. Months pass, and Absalom's rebellion becomes story rather than immediate crisis. Parents tell children about the perils of misplaced trust and the cost of personal ambition. The legacy is a caution stitched into national memory. When David returns to power, he does so with the wounds of loss. He governs differently, chastened by the ruin of family and the near collapse of the realm. The restoration is sober, aimed at healing, not triumphalism. Finally, a scribe's hand tries to make sense of the chaos. The record shows that rebellion arises from grievances and pride, yet produces more suffering than it resolves. The story teaches that political rupture exacts a price beyond calculation. The passage closes by teaching that rebellion born of personal ambition and public grievance destroys both family and state. David's grief shows that political victory cannot undo human loss. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you do not miss the next one.